Hi everyone, welcome to Blazor WebAssembly Cookie Authentication series. So in the first video, we have implemented Blazor WebAssembly authentication using .NET Core cookie. Okay, authentication with the .NET Core cookie. So it is a continuation part. In this video, we are going to authenticate our Blazor WebAssembly application with the cookie, but using the Facebook credentials. Okay. So if you haven't watched my first video, please watch the first video because lot of content or coding has been used from that video. Okay. So here is a Blazor WebAssembly application running and here is our login. Okay. Now what we are going to do, we are going to add a small Facebook link here. So on clicking it, we are allowing our users to log in into our Blazor WebAssembly application using the Facebook credentials. Okay. So now first go to our API project. Okay. So in API project, we have to install Facebook authentication NuGet library. Okay. First, let's install that NuGet. So library we have to install is Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.Authentication.Facebook. Okay. Since I am using .NET CLA, I am going to copy from here. If you are using Visual Studio, then copy it from the package manager. Okay, copy the command, install the authentication, Facebook authentication NuGet. And to enable Facebook authentication, we have to register our API project. Okay, make sure to register our API project, not Blazor WebAssembly application. We have to register our API project with Facebook. Okay. So search like Facebook developer. In that you can click on Facebook for developers. Okay. So log in with your normal Facebook credentials. Once logged in, go to my apps. Okay. Here you can see create app. Click on create app button. Okay. Here you can see type like consumer. Okay. And click on next button. And now give name to your application. Any name you can give. I'm giving like .NET 6 API. Okay, and click on create app. Okay, so it is asking authentication. Give your Facebook password. Okay, now you can see a dashboard like this, and your application name can be seen in this drop down. Now click on setup button on Facebook login. Means we are trying to set up the Facebook login. Okay, click. Okay, under Facebook login, go to settings, and here we need to configure our valid OAuth redirect URL. Okay, this is nothing but, so since we need to register our API, right? Copy the API domain. Okay, this is my API domain slash. Okay, and redirect URL will be sign in hyphen Facebook. So this is the default redirect URL. Okay, save it and click on save changes. Okay, now go to the settings. Under the basic, you can see app ID and app secret. So we have to configure these values into our API project. Okay, now go to API project and go to app settings.development.json and let's create configurations for Facebook settings. Okay, Facebook settings, and I need app ID app secret. So we get them from Facebook dashboard. So copy the app ID and paste it over here. And next, click on show and copy the application secret ID. Okay. Now let's register the Facebook authentication service in the program.cs file. So now to this add cookie service, we can extend our Facebook service as well. Okay, like add Facebook. Okay, and here we need to register our Facebook ID and secret. Not register, we should load here. Okay, so fb.app ID, fb.app secret. Okay, we need to load them from our configuration. So to get them from our configurations, builder.configuration.get section. Okay, and copy the root setting name. Okay, dot get value of type string and of which property we want value. That property name should be passed. I want app ID. So pass it here. Similarly, we have to read app secret as well. So copy the app secret property name, paste over here. So that is the basic configuration for registering the Facebook authentication service. Okay. Now we have to implement our logic into our controller, auth controller, for invoking the Facebook authentication. Okay. So for that, go to our auth controller. Okay, these are the action methods for normal .NET Core cookie login, which we have discussed in video 1. Okay. Now let me create a action method like public action result Facebook login. Okay. And it should be a HTTP GET, and let's configure route as well. Okay. And this is my login action method for invoking the Facebook. So here I should have a input parameter like return URL. So this return URL nothing but my Blazor server application, because once the API is successfully authenticated, I need to redirect back to my Blazor WebAssembly application. Okay. Now we have to use challenge. So this method used for invoking the external login providers. Okay. So to this method, can pass authentication properties. Inside of this authentication properties, I can specify a redirect URL. So I will not specify redirect URL directly this return URL. I need to map it to the one more action method. Okay, that I am going to create in next step. Okay, URL dot action. For now, let's do empty. Okay, and we have to pass one more parameter, the type of authentication we want to invoke. So we have to pass the name here for this challenge method. So Facebook defaults. Okay, put the namespace dot authentication scheme. Okay, this is nothing but a constant Facebook. Okay, so what we will do, we will assign this action method URL in our Blazor WebAssembly application. Whenever that URL is invoked, we are going to invoke our API. Inside of our API, we are calling the Facebook. Okay. So once Facebook authentication everything is successful, then it is going to redirect another URL, that is nothing but another action method in our controller. So let's create one more action method. Async task action return Facebook login. So this method will be like callback method. Okay. So in this method, we are going to again pass our Blazor URL. How it will come also I will explain. Okay. Return URL. Okay. So we are passing this URL here as well. Okay. Nothing but our Blazor WebAssembly application URL. Okay. And now once the authentication is successful, we have to check in this method because this is a callback method, right? So first we need to check the status of our Facebook authentication. For that, authentication result equal to await using HTTP context dot, okay, authentication state async. Okay. To this method, we have to pass the type of authentication we are checking for. I am checking Facebook defaults dot authentication schema. Okay. So from this, I can now understand that authentication is success or not. Okay, succeeded or not. If Facebook authentication is success, okay, in that case, so if the Facebook authentication is success, what we have to do? If the user is first time, then we have to store the user into the database. If user is not first time, based on the Facebook credentials, sorry, Facebook created claims, we have to create a new user into our database so that we can use those that user information to create our cookie. Okay. So now here one thing we have to remember is from here Facebook API will be called on success based on this redirect URL. Facebook URL will redirect us to this action method. Okay, that means Facebook will says if it is authenticated successfully, it will create a cookie, login cookie, default cookie that which we cannot control, and also it will update the HTTP context with the authenticated user information. Means already here we will get one cookie that was created by default by the .NET framework on receiving a success redirect from the Facebook. So what we will do, we are going to use the user claims initially that are prepared by the Facebook. Okay, we are going to create new user into our database. Okay, then we are going to use the data which we saved in our database as a user information, and we are going to create new cookie. We are going to delete the automatically created cookie and we will create new cookie and we also update the HTTP context as well. Okay, so let's correctly. The first thing is I want to uh, update user information if it is not exist, and later I want to return the user information. Okay, so for that let me create a one common method. So this common method will be used by Facebook authentication, Google authentication, Twitter authentication, and Microsoft authentication in all our upcoming videos. Okay, so we are going to create a common code. So my method is like private, I think, task, and finally I want to receive user information from this method. Okay, so I will name this method like manage external login user. Okay, this is my method name. So I want to finally I want to return the user information. So this method will have input parameters like email, first name, last name, and external login name. That means whether it is Facebook, Google, or Twitter or Microsoft. Okay, simple string only. We will pass this. Okay. Now what we will do? First, we will check whether user is already created. Means user already logged in with our Facebook. Then credential will be available in our database, right? So if they are available, we need to fetch from our database. So user equal to await auth context dot user dot where. First, let's compare with email dot lower equal to email dot to lower. Okay. And along with the email, we don't have password rate for external logins. Next next parameter I want to check external login type, because here I want same email can be authenticated with the Facebook, Google. Means I will consider as different accounts. If you want to make a single email, you can do that as well. Okay, but here considering I am email and external login name will be unique in the combination I am taking. Okay, so here I'm going to check for the user with the email and the Facebook external name in the database. Okay, and finally first default is C. So if the data exists, means user already saved into the database, we simply return it from this method. Okay, return user. Okay, if user not exist, then we have to create the new user into our database. So new user equal to new user. Okay, and let's prepare the data. So we are using the Facebook claims to save into our database. Okay, okay, those are the things I want to register user into my database. So after saving the data, we just want to return the new user. Anyway, this method should return a user information as a output. Okay, that is the role of this method. Okay, so let's call this method here. So first, I want to prepare some input parameters like string email, right? So HTTP context user dot claims dot, okay, where type claim type equal to claim types dot email. Okay, then select value. It will give my value. Okay, next string dot first name equal to HTTP context. So copy this, but here I want name. Okay, next I want string dot last name equal to HTTP context dot, copy this line, and last name will be the surname. Okay, and now okay, now we can invoke the get the user information from the manage external login method. So I can pass email, first name, last name, And finally, I can specify directly it is a Facebook authentication. Okay. Now I got the user. So now what I have said here, by default, user get authenticated, created cookie, default cookie, and added claims. Those are taken from directly from the Facebook. But we want our own cookie, right? So we are generally depends upon the user ID to display the profile. We go to profile endpoint, we want user ID. So user ID, so cookie is created before user ID. So we cannot use that cookie. So for that we need to refresh the cookie. Refresh the cookie is nothing but sign out the existing cookie and signing with a new cookie. So for that what we can do means create one more, okay, one more private method. So this method also used by all our external login providers in the upcoming videos and in this video as well. Okay, async task refresh external login. Okay, so this method will take user as a first input parameter. Okay, now what I can do, I just copy my login code logic. Okay, most of the logic will be same. Okay, copy that logic, paste it over here. Okay, so this part of line is fine, and here is also fine. Everything is fine, but here we will write few more additional codes. First, we are going to update the current HTTP context. Okay, to do that, I can do user dot add identity. So here I am preparing a new claims, right? New claims identity with my user information from my database. So currently up to this line, current context is based on the Facebook cookie. So now I am overriding it now. Okay, claims identity. And next, I want to delete the cookie that was created by the Facebook default Facebook cookie by our .NET framework. So to delete that, we know method http context dot http context dot signout async. Okay, and again re-signing. That means we are creating a new cookie with our data that was stored in our database. Okay, so we have to use this method. So here, once we got the user information, I can call refresh login, okay, user, and it should be awaited. Okay, and this is also awaited. Okay, so that's it. Up to here, we successfully creating our login cookie with our database. Now finally, I have to redirect, right? So here what I will do, return redirect. So here my query parameter is return URL is nothing but Blazor WebAssembly application, right? So it will redirect there. But I will not redirect as it is. What I will do, I will add a one more query parameter to this return URL. Why that URL? Return URL you can understand when we jump into our Blazor WebAssembly application. So here I will just add a query parameter like external auth true. Okay. And here what I will do, if the Facebook authentication is not succeeded, then I simply, then also I will redirect to Blazor WebAssembly, but I will send a flag like external authentication equal to false. Okay. Okay. So that's it. That's our logic for so that's it. That's our logic for Facebook authentication in API. Okay, here finally we need to update our callback right here that I forgot. So name of my callback method. So what is my callback method? Facebook login callback, comma, I can pass query parameter. So query parameters nothing but for this action method. So what I will pass, I simply pass this return URL. Okay. So whenever Facebook authentication needed, first this endpoint invokes. Okay. In this endpoint we use a challenge, right? So this challenge based on the specified external authentication provider, it will display that external login provider. So here it is a Facebook, right? It will show Facebook login. So once Facebook is successfully user is logged in, then it will redirect back to here. So here what we are doing, if that is a new user, we are creating the user into the database. If that is not new user, we are fetching the user information and we are removing the default cookie that was created by the framework with the help of Facebook, and we are updating our own cookie. So all the logic is available in the external login method. So finally what we are doing, if it is everything success, we are redirecting to the Blazor WebAssembly URL with a extra query parameter true. If it is failed Facebook authentication, we were passing like a flag like external auth. So this query parameter is not only for to know whether it is success or not, it also has some role in our Blazor WebAssembly so that we will understand. Okay. So far so good. API changes are done. Now get back to our Blazor WebAssembly application. Go to login component. Okay, login.razor page. So here what I will do, I will add one more button here under this. Okay. Okay, here I have added Facebook link. So to this href, I need to add my API link. Okay. So for that, what I will do, href equal to what is my API URL? This is my API URL, right? Okay. And what is path for my Facebook authentication? Facebook login under the auth controller, right? So slash auth slash Facebook, and I have to pass return URL as a query parameter. So this is nothing but my Blazor WebAssembly URL, right? So Blazor WebAssembly URL I can pass the landing page. Okay, that's it. Here on clicking this, it's going to invoke our API. Okay, on successful, it return back to our home page of our Blazor WebAssembly application. Okay, so now if you try, so now along with this, we need to do one more change. Go to, if you recall our first video, once user is logged in, we are storing is authenticated local storage variable. Okay, this is all going through by API calls. What is this? This is normal form authentication, which is a in which we are going to create a ASP.NET Core cookie directly, okay, without any external. So this is the API call, right? So we are going to create successfully local storage. But Facebook, we don't have control. How we can create this local storage when the user is authenticated with the Facebook? So for that, what we will do in AppRaiser, okay, in AppRaiser, here we are going to check the condition like if string dot is null or empty, or if variable is not found in the local storage. Obviously, if the user is authenticated, this will be empty, obviously, because we cannot create that local storage in the login page. Okay, and here what I'm going to do means context dot path dot to lower dot contains. Okay, what it contains? It contains the this query parameter. What is external auth equal to 2? We are going to check for this query parameter. Okay, that means it is redirected from the external login provider. So what we are doing, we are checking auth variable. Obviously, it will be empty, and we will checking the route. So if route contains external auth true, then what we are going to do means auth equal to, we will pass just true string, and here we are going to set the value. So for next time, if we don't have external URL also, we know whether that is authenticated or not based on the local storage variable. So what I can do, from the login display component, copy this line of code and paste it here. Okay. So for normal form authentication, Blazor form authentication, this variable is created here. Copied wrong one. This one, set authentication. Okay. So normal form, in the form itself, we are setting the variable. For external logins, we are setting the local storage variable based on the query parameter. Okay. So that's it. Those are the changes we need. Now let's run our API and Blazor WebAssembly application and test our Facebook authentication. Okay. And one small change here, make this method as private. Okay. One thing, you have to make that method private, refresh login. And here also, I haven't configured route and HTTP request method. These should be mandatory for the controller. Okay. Book login callback. Okay. Now rerun my API. And one more small correction here. In the callback method, I have mentioned like return. So it should be written this parameter value should be matched. Okay. Then only callback gets executed successfully. So here also we need to change the spelling. Okay. Now rerun the API project. So now click on the Facebook link. You can see Facebook login page. Enter your credentials. See, you can see my authenticated name and logout button. And here you can see external auth equal to true query parameter. That means our callback has successfully executed. And in the local storage, you can see the variable gets created. Okay. So same way you can log out. Okay. Same way you can log in again with the Facebook. Okay. So see, it is successfully logged in because Facebook I have already logged in right in the first request. That is why next time you are not seeing the login page. If you log out to your Facebook account, it will again pops up. Log out. Okay, now log in again. Click on Facebook. Again it asks. Okay, if you already log in into your browser and already once log in with your Facebook page, then it will automatically redirect. If you want to see the Facebook login page, you must log out Facebook from your browser as well. Okay, so don't confuse why it is working like that in this case. Okay, if I click login, again I am redirecting back. I am getting my information. So that's all about the Facebook authentication in Blazor WebAssembly with cookie based. Okay, in the next video we are going to do a Twitter cookie based authentication into our Blazor WebAssembly application. Okay. So that's all. I hope this video has delivered some useful information to you all. If you like my video, please do support me by subscribing to my channel. Soon we are going to meet with new videos. Until then, signing off.